This is the Dragon Can Trail, a narrow, exposed, off-camber ridge that offers very little forgiveness. One wrong move and you're falling down over 14 meters, that's 46 feet, into relentless red rock. In this video, I'll share how I prepared to ride it and how you can too. Before coming to Tremp, which is in northern Spain, we met a couple for dinner in our previous riding destination, Ainza. And I knew this couple from many years ago. They're experienced riders. He's been riding for about 30 plus years, and she's been riding a little longer than I have. They said they'd come to ride this trail, inspired by the magnificent shots online, but they left disappointed because they didn't dare to ride it. The exposure, the uncertainty, well, it got to them. And suddenly, I wasn't just curious about this trail. I was honestly a little nervous. So, what did I do? I did what I always do when fear starts whispering. I got methodical. I trained for it. So I collected proof because I know that fear isn't a flaw. It's simply feedback. It's my nervous system asking for more preparation. Specifically, this means that I analyzed which skills I need to ride this ridge safely, and then I repeatedly practiced the ones I knew had to be absolutely on point. And that's both the physical and the mental skills. I'll share more about the physical skills later in this video. But here's how I prepared mentally. The days before we arrived in Tremp, I started using mental imagery, which means I rode the ridge in my mind. How did I do that? With two techniques. One, while riding similar, like less intriguing features, of course, I imagined to actually be here, riding the Dragon Can Ridge, and I focused on clean, repeatable, and reliable movement patterns there. So I put myself in a low-risk environment, but in an environment where I also needed the physical skills, and I imagined to be in a high-risk environment. And two, each night before falling asleep, I imagined riding the exposed Dragon Can Ridge in control. And I practiced how I'd breathe, where I'd look, which plan B options I had, and of course, I visualized arriving right here on the other side, proud of myself. I honestly don't like risk very much, so this was not about adrenaline. What I do love, however, is control, and I love expanding my comfort zone. So when we got here, we rode up to the trail and we could see it from the side riding up. So I remembered how I'd practiced and I was sure I could do it. I was confident and I was excited and I was ready. But there was a problem. My husband, Bernie, he didn't want me to do it. So he reminded me that we had a coaching season ahead, like the high season, because we're leaving for Italy, Germany, and Austria in a week. And in the next 2 months, we'll be coaching around 430 riders. So he said, "Hey, Roxy, I really can't do it without you. Check this out, I have the cutest little butterfly on my hand." So he said, "Roxy, I can't do it without you. Is it really worth the risk? You know, if you crash here, it's not a bruise. This could mean several months off the bike, or even worse." So we had an intense discussion, and then I said, "Okay, listen, let's do a track walk first, and then I'll decide for sure. I absolutely see where you're coming from, but you also know me. I don't like adrenaline. I'm not into this for the rush." So we did the track walk. We walked along the ridge. I analyzed the line. We talked through all of the possible dangers, where to brake, where to focus my vision, and where I could abort if it was possible. So then I said, okay, let's just ride the red trail. That's that one. It's called Dragonette. And then decide. And that's what we did. This trail is much, much easier. The exposure and the narrow sections are much shorter, and the risk is significantly lower, as a possible crash isn't like 40 meters down there. It's about 4 meters, maybe you can see. So that's 13 instead of 46 feet. So after riding the Dragonet Trail, I was totally confident I could do this Black Dragon Trail. So I'd walked it, I'd analyzed it, I'd trained for it extensively in the last years and specifically in the last weeks. So now I knew grip conditions, how it felt to be on the ridge, how I felt on the bike that day, and I was absolutely positive that I could do it. So then Bernie finally did agree, and we rode up all the way again. He launched the drone, and I hit the trail. So this is the moment where training meets terrain, where fear honestly just steps back and focus takes over. The first section is steep, it's loose, it's slippery, and just exposed enough to remind you what's at stake. There are corners, there are ruts, there are open views that do tempt your attention, but I stay locked in. Because deep down, I know I'm not riding this for the thrill. I'm riding it to prove that calm can win. That confidence doesn't have to come from courage. It's actually competence that breeds confidence. So now I'm hitting the ridge. Every movement here has to be clean. Eyes ahead, breath steady, no room for ego, just presence. And this middle section, it's a little more mellow. It's just enough to breathe and relax and to ask myself, am I really ready to continue? Because from here on, there is no turning back. So now it gets real. The ridge narrows, the drop deepens, and the trail turns into a razor's edge. Perhaps you can hear my breath. And no, that's not fear, that's actually deliberate. Inhale steady, exhale long through puckered lips. It's how I keep my nervous system in the zone and how I stay present, even when everything in my body wants to tighten. Controlling your breath isn't some fluffy trick, people. It's science-backed nervous system management. It's the body and the brain working together to stay in the zone. This zone is actually the part of the bell curve where the level of nervous system arousal is ideal to perform at your best. The very last bit is the sketchiest. It's super off-camber and loose. Honestly, I was concerned my rear wheel might slide out, so I used every tool I had. Knees for balance, subtle foot tilt to counter the slope, and this, by the way, is why I would never attempt a trail like this, clipped in, because I really need the freedom in my feet to tilt, to adjust and respond, to keep that bike on the ridge. And then I was through. I did it. And that's not because I'm brave, not because I'm reckless or badass, but because I was prepared, because I trained for calm precision, both physically and mentally. And that's why I truly trusted myself. So now let's talk skills, because I want you to be just as prepared, even if you never plan to ride a ridge like this one. Because the skills I'm sharing now, they're not ridge-only skills. They're control skills. And control is what gives you freedom on any trail. So the two most important skills are body positioning and brake modulation. If you've been around here a while, you know I kind of obsess about these two. Why is that? Because everything else depends on those two skills. Body to for rearward on this ridge, your front wheel simply slides out. That could be lethal here. You brake too hard, your wheels slide out sideways, or you lose balance because you stall. And that could result in a high sider, big ouch. It could be your last high sider, not exaggerating. So the thing is, it's tiny nuances in those skills that decide whether you ride clean or whether you crash really hard. The next skill you need is equilibrium. You might be like, duh. Also, slow speed ratcheting, being able to stay true to the line. And what plays a large role too is to be able to stick to your vision. So you need to scan ahead between now and next, using your vision intentionally to blur out everything else. Yep, those are the most essential skills to ride this ridge. So now you may be like, what the heck, Roxy? Those are beginner skills. You're telling me that beginner skills is all I need? Well, no. I am telling you that these skills are what people call beginner skills, and that's why I keep obsessing about them. But I'm telling you that you don't need magic new skills. All you need is really solid fundamentals and slow speed skills at a very advanced level. True story. So if you want to start practicing these today, you can follow my free track stand challenge, which is linked above and also linked below. And also you can work with me personally on your fundamentals, because fundamentals are, yes, all you need, but at a very advanced level. So here's another pro tip to prepare specifically for something like this. Simulate it. Set up narrow lines on off-camber terrain using ropes or sticks, for example, and practice riding them slowly and deliberately again and again and again and again until you can hit them with calm and precision. Not tension and wobbliness, calm and precision is what you're looking for, because the real test for something like this isn't riding fast or winging it. It's staying relaxed and in control, even at slow speed, especially when your margin for error is basically non-existent. So if you want to work on them with my personal feedback, you can check the link in the pinned comment. I would love to know whether you found this helpful. And if you want to find out how to ride ruts with confidence, then watch this video. Sign up for my info letter right here. Sending much love from northern Spain. I'm Roxy.